You're listening to the Current Plays Podcast, Season 3, Episode 13, Black Forest. Now please welcome your hosts, Jordan and Thomas. And welcome back, intrepid listeners. This week we are talking about Black Forest, which is a re-implementation of Glass Road. These games are by Uwe Rosenberg or Uwe Rosenberg. I'm pretty sure it's one of those two, but I'm not exactly sure how he specifically pronounces it. So if I got it wrong, apologize. Won't be the
Haven't met
first
it yet.
time, won't be the last time. Yeah,
He hasn't come to Breakout Con yet.
yeah, exactly. So like I said, yeah, this is a reimplementation of Glass Road, which is an older game of his. This one is by Feuderland, and yeah, it's a straight up classic Euro agriculture game, right?
100%.
You're doing worker placement. You're building up like a farm and animals and crops and stuff, and using that to up your, I guess, glass hut to do, yeah, to make glass, and you're building buildings with glass, I guess, right?
They have windows.
Yeah, there you
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, yeah, we'll just get into the meat of the game here. So, as I said, it's a worker placement game. And in this particular game, you've got five different villages. Yeah, I think five different villages around the map. And then each village has three to five. No, sorry, three or four. There, I'm just kind of looking at some images on my phone here. Three or four different tradespeople, which are like action spaces. And then the worker placement spaces are actually between these tradespeople. And so when you put your worker there, you can take either or both of the action spaces that you're adjacent to. And to move from village to village to village is going to cost you resources, it's going to cost you provisions. But you're going to go to these tradespeople to get resources, to change resources, to, trade things around, um, and add stuff to your personal, what they call domain. So you get one estate tile, and it's basically got a grid on it where you can add ponds and fields, and it's got your glass hut on there and some forests, and you can cut down the forests to make wood and build pastures to house livestock, and then you can butcher that livestock for food, or you can, milk the cows for porridge. It's very thematic, a lot of fun. The breakout uh, mechanic or feature in this game is how the resources are managed, and it's the same as Glass Road. Although I've never played that, so I don't know if it's exactly the same, but I know these wheels are from that,
Yeah,
and it,
yeah.
and it uses these wheels. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, I'm showing it, but I'll do my best to just describe how these wheels work. So there's two of them. There's your resource wheel and your provision wheel or something like that. That's probably not what they're called. But your cooking wheel, I think that's what that is.
Yeah, that's what you referred to it the other night as. Yeah, yeah.
So they're basically like, if you think of a clock, 1 to 12, and they're artistically like a wagon wheel, but they've got these hands like a clock, one pointing at 12 and one pointing at 8. And in between those hands, so from like the 9, 10, 11, but well, between 8 and 12, let's say, you've got production. These are like your higher end resources that you have to use your basic resources to produce. So on your resource wheel, that's going to be glass. And on your cooking wheel, that's provisions and commodities. And then in the other side of these wheels, you've got all your basic resources. So on your resource wheel, that's sand, charcoal, water, and wood. And on the other side, it's charcoal, meat, and porridge. But why does that matter? Okay, so the inside of the circle is where it indicates the number of resources that you have. So between these spokes on the wheel, or the hand, like where the hands of the clock would be, you've got your resources, and then these actual hands you're going to put wooden discs on there. And if ever there's room for the hands to move, they're going to move automatically. And what that's going to do is it's going to use up one of each of your basic resources to produce one of the advanced resources. So if you've got basically sand sitting here blocking that hand from moving, and all you've got a bunch of other resources. So you'll essentially have zero sand if it's right beside that hand of the clock. As soon as you gain sand, now you have one, then there'll be space beside the clock hand and it'll move and then you'll have produced a glass. It's very, very neat concept. I think they brought it back because everybody loved it. And it is very cool because it adds this added puzzle of resource management where I think there were several times in our game last night. It's like, well, I really want water, for example. For me, it was like I want water, and I don't want to spend water. I and if I gain wood, then it's just gonna spend the water to produce glass. And it was like, I don't really need glass at the moment. So even if I wanted wood, I can't gain any wood or else I'm gonna spend all my other resources that I need to have that quantity of, right? So and timing when you gain resources is it's a very interesting puzzle in this game.
Yeah, that's a big thing is the timing, right? Which I find very cool. Yeah, you're absolutely correct. This wheel is such a unique, again, unique. It's such a clever mechanism. Just the way that like, okay, I'm increasing these. Oh, wait, now I have empty space, and now I've just eaten up the increase in those resources that I had basically planned to use, right? So
Yep.
then it becomes, yeah, like that puzzle, like you alluded to there was, it's basically, okay, right now, say I have max glass, that is protecting my basic resources from that, clock hand coming down and eating up resources, right? So I might want to do things with the basic resources, use them up or whatever, and then use the glass, right? As the sec because you have those spots that you can take like the two actions, you're often thinking, okay, which action should I do first? Sometimes it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what action I do first because it's not affecting anything. Or if I bump up on this thing and produce the glass, no big deal. And then on the flip side of the cooking wheel, the um, super resources are your provisions and your caravan movement, whatever that one's called.
Yeah, the
But
commodities.
yeah, the commodities, right? So same on that one, right? You're thinking on both sides of both these wheels on how to manipulate that so you don't basically lose out on resources or timing things. Especially when you're thinking, okay, I'm going to use this resource to do that, and then you take an action, and then all of a sudden go, oh, I don't have that resource anymore, so I guess I can't do that, right?
Yep.
So I really like that kind of thought process that goes into that. And I find it's not you have to think it out, but it's not like a bothersome think it out. And why I say that is there's one small rule I dislike in this one, and I can understand it to a degree is basically there's some of these building tiles, and we might talk about that shortly too.
Yeah, I was
That
gonna get into that, but
yeah,
yeah.
you know what? I'll talk about it when you get into it, and then I'll
Okay.
talk about that rule of what I think about it. But yeah, absolutely. The wheels, so cool, so neat.
Yeah. So, as we were just getting at, the main way of earning, yeah, I would say the main way, not the only way, but the main way of earning points in this game is you're trying to build buildings. So there are 64 small buildings, and then, well, in a two-player game, there's four large buildings, and I think in a three as well, and then in a four-player game, I think it goes up to five or six. I don't know because we've never played that high. But um your estate tiles and your domain, like I was saying, has these grids. So thematically, you have your glass hut, and then you're going to be chopping down forests to pretty much to get wood. There's other reasons why, but mainly for wood. And then that's going to open up spaces on your domain. And there's other things that will, you can cut down your fields to get very like food or porridge or whatever. Um, and then those spaces you can build buildings on, which is really neat. And the buildings will be worth points, and they'll give you like they might give you a one-time resource boon, or they might give you a conversion that you can do, or there's also like a conditional reward. So whenever you visit such a trade person, you also get an additional resource or something like that. Different things. And then your big buildings are really just like end game point scoring conditions. There's always one that's just straight up worth 10 points, and then there's other ones that are like worth 5 or 6 points. And then if you can meet certain conditions, and you can get extra points for that. So it's trying to look at the little buildings, trying to determine what usually what path you want to take to make your game more efficient, or you might be able to find some combos in there, to try and get you towards those large buildings faster. But the end of the game actually has nothing to do with points or the buildings. The end of the game actually has to do with your cooking wheel. And once your provisions have basically, once you've produced and used so many provisions, uh, then which is the resource that you need to go from village to village to village to village. That's kind of your game clock. So once they make it around so far around this wheel, again to show it, right? So your provisions are going to start in that 8 to 12 o'clock range, like I said, and then as you produce them, the wheel's going to spin around, or the clock hands are going to spin around, and then eventually you'll have produced enough provisions that it triggers the end of the game. And then hopefully you've got your buildings,
Yeah.
pastures. Like if you built pastures, that's worth points. If you put livestock in them, I should say. You getting if your glass hut, you can upgrade your glass hut and then get a new estate tile, and then those tiles are worth 2 points. I think that's pretty much. And as far as you've gone along on that cooking wheel, you get points for that too. So I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
are all of the point scoring um things. I don't know,
Yeah.
the word's
Yeah. Yeah.
escaping me, but yeah, it's mainly the buildings. This huge board, like I said, 64 buildings plus your large buildings. And it's kind of trying to sort that all out in your mind. Usually right at the beginning of the game, eh? You're like, what am I going to target here?
It's really reminiscent of, and this one I believe came out first, but that initial turn on Feast for Odin, when you have, or a Feast for Odin, another Uwe game, right?
Mm,
You have. 100 different actions you can take in that game. And you're like, your first turn, you're like, well, what do I do first? Figure it
Yeah,
out. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Come up with a plan, right? This one's too. It's like, okay, there's 64 buildings or whatever that number you just quoted, right? And like, okay, what do I want to build first? Figure it out, come up with
You,
some sort of plan and then
it's 34, not
34.
64.
Okay,
I'm a
okay,
dummy.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
64, that's a lot, but
it's 64 or 34. It's still a lot of buildings, right?
it's a lot of buildings.
So yeah, that initial first turn, even the startup of the game, we're sitting there and we're reading each building, going right? And we both ended up taking two different routes, which is really neat, which is a testament to, there being 34 buildings and them being different enough that both of us kind of went different routes. And then at the end of the game, when
Yeah.
we were talking about it, we both saw a third route, and we both went, "Oh, that would have been better than both our strategies, right?"
Yep. Yep. That would
So
have been so
yeah,
good.
if either of us had taken that, we would have just ran with it, right? So, but yeah, yeah, those buildings. So the thing I was talking about earlier, and it's a very minor rule, and I don't think it really matters, but those conversion buildings. Essentially, you can do conversions on your turn at any time, except while you're in the middle of an action. And cool. I, I get that. My problem with that, though, is that there's like a lot to try and plan in your mind on your turn. So you're kind of like paying attention to a lot of that. And then you start to plan it out and you go, oh, I forgot this was gonna also tilt down. Now I don't have that resource that I was going to use. But had I used this building, I would have had three more of this resource. So if I did that first, so ended up doing that once, and then I went, "Oh, that was kind of silly. I should have done." And you were like, "That's fine. You can do it." I asked because I'm a little baby like that. I was like, "Can I do this, please?" Right? And you were like, "Yeah, no, that's fine." Um, I feel like I broke up there maybe for a second.
Yeah, you keep freezing.
I keep getting a notification here, and I don't know if you're going to see that on YouTube too, but I keep getting an unstable internet connection here. So hopefully that doesn't make too much of an issue, but
Oh
I'll
boy.
repeat it just in case here. So essentially, I had a issue there where had I taken one of these conversion actions before my first action, I would have had enough resources to do the second action. But just trying to like mentally plan out everything, I didn't even think about doing that first, which would have changed absolutely nothing. It was just me going, okay, I'm going to do this first, right? So then I was a baby and I was like, can I please do this? And you were like, yeah, yeah, it's fine, whatever, right? So I did that and was able to do my thing. And then I ended up doing it later on. And the second time I did it, I'm like, I'm not even gonna ask. I'm just
Oh,
not gonna do it. I just feel like, you know what, next time, pay attention. But that little rule, I'm like, it really serves, I don't think any purpose there other than to try and like really mentally drain you. Because especially when you get like two or three of these buildings, which I ended up doing. And I was like, okay, this one makes porridge. And then I turn porridge into cows. And then the action I'm taking turns that cow into meat. And I'm using that meat in another porridge now to upgrade my glass. So it was like five different steps. And I'm like, I gotta plan the getting of these resources, the clock turning, and then me doing these free actions, and then spending them over here, and then it was a lot where when it'd be like, the second time I did it, I um I ended up like completing a contract and got a bunch of like resources and tiles or whatever, right? But one of the resources was wood or something, and I ended up getting like two more wood than I could actually put in my resource wheel, right? Because you can
right.
have max seven of a resource, and I went, whatever. But then I built like immediately after, which I had enough resources to build beforehand, so had I built, or it doesn't quite make sense with the game, but this is basically what happened. So had I built first, I could have actually got those two the wood. So it was like,
Right.
yeah, what? So at that point, I was like, whatever. I'm not gonna take it. I'll just lose the two wood. But it was that type of kind of thought process that like that's one thing I'm like, I don't care much for that, just because it doesn't really change anything other than just putting a limitation on, when you can do your conversions. But anytime on your turn, you can do these conversions, right?
I could
Except,
see like a case where maybe you like genuinely couldn't do something if you didn't do the conversion right in the middle of the action, just because the wheel automatically turns, like you don't have a choice in it, right?
yeah, yeah, and that's likely it
But
in the cases like that, or maybe you're getting like if you have an action that's giving you a couple of resources, and then you're like, okay, I'm gonna get meat and I'm gonna get wood, and I collect the two meat, and then I use one of these things to turn it into a whatever that I could use the wood with now, and then I can understand that kind of thing that you're kind of breaking up that action to do that. So that's likely why it's in there. I just found it added to the like mental stress where now I got to take
and
longer on my turn to make sure that I'm planning it out properly so that I don't, stub my toe on that kind of thing, right?
that's
So,
probably why, like, I think this had I just had it up, but it's rated fairly high on the complexity scale on BGG. It's a 3.18.
oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, but like I don't really find it to be that complex of a game. Just I think it's more like we said before, you kind of really have to plan out your path at the
Yeah.
beginning of the game. And then that might change because somebody might build the building that you were going after, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
But it- other than having to just plan ahead a bit, like there's nothing that complex in this game. I guess the one other thing that can happen is you can find yourself stranded
Yes.
because if you can move to a build. Actually, this happened in our game last night where I wanted to go to the village to the left, but then that would have used my last provision. And that would have been okay if I could have stayed in that village. So, like I said, there's 3 or 4 spots you can go in each village, and it doesn't cost anything to move around in that village. And I should say, on your turn, you have to move. You can't just stay in the same spot and spam the actions. So, if I could have just stayed in that village, it would have been okay. But I'm like, what are the chances of that? Because another part of this game is you can spend commodities, which is one of those advanced resources on the cooking wheel. And what that does is one of the tradespeople is a traveling merchant. And when somebody spends a commodity, they get to swap the traveling merchant with a different tradesperson anywhere on the board. So I know had I gone over to the other village and now I'm stuck and I'm trying to, move between a couple different actions, Thomas is just going to spend a commodity, take the action that I needed out of there and put the traveling merchant in there. And okay, if I had commodities, I could swap it back, but then I probably had I think I had one and you had a bunch, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was like, okay, well, instead of going to this left village, then I went to the right to the village up that way so that I could actually make a bunch of porridge so that I could create a bunch of provisions, so so you could end up in a situation where you strand yourself and then you can actually take what they call a beggar turn. I think that term's straight out of Agricola.
Yeah.
But you
Yeah.
take a beggar turn where you basically take your meeple and put them in the center of the village so that you're not on any worker placement spaces, and then you just gain one provision. So that'll let you move one village over, and then hopefully in that village you can take some actions, right?
Yeah, it's an action you don't want to have to take, right? It's going to set you
Hmm.
back for sure, right? You're t essentially just missing a whole turn, which is unfortunate. But yeah, I really like, yeah, the play between those, like even the provisions and the commodities, and being able to, bounce around that traveling merchant when you just need, you know what? I don't like these two. Anything that's side by side in this village. So I'm going to bring the traveling merchant over there. So now the one action that I wanted I can pair with the traveling merchant and get, two resources. And typically in these types of games, anytime there's a spot that I get resources and then you get resources, I never take it. I don't want you to get anything on my turn, right?
Right.
But this time I used it quite often,
Yeah,
where
you
it was like
did.
you get to take two of one resources and then your opponent gets to take one of that same resource, right? But I had such a from the start of the game, I had planned out like, I don't know, at least 50%. I had planned out the entire engine that I was going to run with, and then I was like, and then I'll just figure out some way to build buildings after that and get extra points, right? So it just was like whatever I need to do to get the resources I need to build the buildings that I'm planning on building turn after turn, do whatever it is to get those as fast as possible, right? And that's what I did. Like right away, I saw there was this one building that was, convert your fields or your pastures or whatever those are called, the wheat fields,
Mm.
into three porridge. I was like, great, that's a free conversion I can do on my turn. That's wonderful. Three porridges is great. And then there was another building that was up that was convert three porridge into a cow or two porridge into a pig. And I'm like, great. So that'll synergize. I can make the porridge. I can get the cows. And then there was a spot on the board to turn the cows into meat, and there was another building that turned meat and porridge into um, glass movement, right? Or glass production, right? So it's like okay, and then that will help me create glass so I can buy the higher point buildings. And that's just what I did. I built those three buildings as fast as I could. And then it was just, okay, how can I build more point scoring buildings? Get one of the buildings that, like the larger buildings that help you score massive points. And then just keep progressing. I just kept pushing that the timer forward and forward and forward because I knew,
Yeah.
okay, I'm working towards these buildings. So once I got that big building, I'm gonna want to be in a spot that I can end it fairly quickly after I get that right. And it didn't quite line up as fast as I wanted because on your final turn, you ended up pulling off like a pretty awesome move to score a bunch of
Yeah.
points, right? Um, and I was
Well,
like, oh, yeah,
so at the beginning of the game, I saw that same like convert fields into porridge. And
hmm
then there was a large building that I can't remember what it was exactly, but like you got points for every porridge or something like that. Or was it points for every field? Yeah, you could convert anyway.
porridge back into fields. Yeah,
Something
yeah,
like I don't know. Yeah. So I was like, oh, there's a synergy there. And then I looked and I was like, no, because you needed fields, but it like you're chopping down your fields to make the
yeah,
porridge. So
yeah,
oh, you could buy fields with porridge. Yeah, anyway.
yeah, yeah.
So but the conversion didn't really work. And I was like,
No,
oh, so I'm like, okay,
you
well,
destroy a field to get three porridge, and then spend four
four
porridge to get a
porridge,
field.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's what it was,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So I saw another building that was worth 6 points, and then it was 1 point for every water you had. And I'm like, well, okay, well, you can have a maximum of 7 water. So that's 23 points on one building. That's pretty good. And then I saw there was another building that was get rid of a pond for water. I think it was 3 water or something like that. And I'm like, okay, that's fantastic. And so I snatched that up right away. Well, I mean, you've got two pawns to start.
Yeah.
So so then I go, okay, how do you get more pawn? And I this is a part of the game I really like, right? So I go, okay, I need water. I've just bought this building that lets me get water. Of course, there's another action on the board where you get water for every pond you have, but I was like, this is a quick conversion I can do. Quickly get rid of my pawns at the end of the game, get a bunch of water. Okay, awesome. But I'm like, I'll need more pawns. So how do I get pawns? Well, you need bricks. Okay, how do I get bricks? You need charcoal. Okay, well, how do I get charcoal? Like, you need wood.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
okay, there's like one major spot on the board to get a lot of wood, and that's by chopping down your forests. So there's like this big chain of things. Like you want one thing, and you have to do a bunch of things to get there, right?
Yeah.
So I really like that about this game. It's not just a simple,
Yeah. It's fantastic. Yeah, that's a
yeah.
fantastic. Just the
So
whole process of it. Yeah.
in the end, I got this building and then I went, this isn't really gonna work. And then I like floundered with a couple other different strategies, or at least I thought I was floundering. But we were right at the end of the game. I could tell Thomas was pushing the end of the game, and I'm like, I know we're getting close to the end, and I didn't have much water, like two water, and I'm freaking out, going, I'm gonna lose out on all these points, and he's like way gonna overtake me. And then I saw a building there I hadn't really noticed before that said, like, you just buy the building and you just get seven water. And so I made sure I had to work like hard to get the resources in,
Yeah.
and I had like
Yeah.
just enough glass
Yeah.
and like right on the last turn, and my water shot up to max, and you're like, oh, I
Yeah,
can't
I
believe you
saw,
did
yeah,
that.
saw it happen. I was like, that just, what it essentially did was just, it took my big building scoring point and just negated it because we ended up scoring the exact same amount of points on our big building,
Yep.
right? And I was like, oh, well, here,
But I
like
was
pushing towards that end game to have that big building and you not have, you not be set up for it. And
right.
then last turn, boom.
But what was really neat is you had a bunch of buildings. So I'm over looking at your estate, and your big building was scoring points for having adjacent buildings.
Yeah.
So you had like a bunch of little buildings, and I'm going, oh man, there's no way I'm going to catch up. But then I grabbed a couple of pastures and filled them with animals, and those points balanced each other out. Like,
It,
uh,
it was crazy. Yeah. Like this game is the tightest game that I think we've ever played. Like
yeah,
both times we literally tied. Like it came down to a tie-breaking, scenarios in the book. Well, if
yeah.
you're tied, then look at this.
We played this
Uh,
game twice and
yeah,
tied both times.
tried both times. Yeah.
Yeah,
Which is just wild. Especially like with this one having vastly different strategies and then ending up in the same spot again. And like every little move felt like, well, if I didn't do that, I would have lost the game. And if you didn't
yeah,
do that, you would have lost the game. And if I did this instead, I would have lost the game, right? And it was like, oh, great. Because like at one point too, I made a move. Like I had one pasture and it was empty the entire game. And then like second last turn or whatever, I was able to put three boars just on it, right? Because
yeah,
I was able to convert six porridge into three boars, and it was just based on me going, okay, I'll bump up porridge with that with the caravan or the marketplace or whatever, right? Instead of and that'll bump me to six porridge when I kind of wanted meat, but I was like, yeah, but then I'll convert these into boars, and then I'll have three, and that's 3 point. If I didn't do that, if I had taken the other way, I could have. That would have been the end, right? And I
Yep.
wouldn't have
Yep.
known until we counted up points at the end, and it was like I had all these buildings, but they were very like one of my buildings was 0 points, right? So it was like I bought some of the lower level buildings, and then I think I only ended up like building wise having like one more point in buildings than you did, right? But
Right.
then I was higher on the, you know, I progressed up the cooking track a bit, so I had some extra stars there that you didn't have. But then you had all those animals in the right, so it was like, oh man, so tight.
And on
And
the
both
last turn,
games, yeah,
it was like I could have. There were different ways I could have built that building, that water tower to get the water, and I thought I must have thought about it for like 6 minutes sitting there. And I'm like, well, if I do it this way, I'll get one additional wood, which will produce one glass and get me one more point. And I joked when because that's the first thing you score. And
yeah,
I'm like, I got 1 point. That's going to make all the difference. And then at the end, I'm like,
it
oh my
did.
God, it did make all the difference.
Yeah, yeah. If you did get that one, I just, it would have been a clear, nope, not a tie,
Yeah.
right?
I mean,
Um,
I still lost because the tiebreaker is whoever ends the game, like whoever gets their provision to that spot,
yeah,
like
yeah.
they win the tiebreaker. And you did it both times.
Yeah, which is so interesting because like it refers to two tie conditions, right? So that one's the first one. If you're past, I guess that spot, and then based on I don't know, whose turn is next, which is
Yeah,
crazy, right? Um, but yeah, yeah, like we passed that, or I passed that, and then I was like, your turn is theoretically next, or would have been next, but you weren't past that. That's what you didn't have your provision up to that spot, right? So it was like, oh yeah, okay, tiebreaker goes to me before we get into the second one, and it was like, just so neat, so tight, just a fantastic design, just
yeah,
wonderful
it's
design,
good. This is my only Uwe Rosenberg game.
solid one to have.
Shockingly. But yeah, really like it.
Yeah, here's mine at the Gates of Light, but yeah,
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
really
huh.
good, really good,
Yeah. Another one that it's like we don't play this enough because we got so many, but yeah,
100%.
it's a nice, tight, classic Euro agricultural theme, as only Uwe Rosenberg can do.
100%.
And that wraps up another episode of the Current Plays podcast. Check us out next week on YouTube or your favorite podcast provider. But until then, good gaming and good night.
Good night, folks.